We've already seen how many American universities are so weak in standing against anti-Israel and anti-Jewish extremists. The extremists have taken over university grounds, intimidated Jewish students. But now, Australian universities are also caving in even to terrorism supporters. It's so gutless. Here are the worst examples so far from Australia's campuses. I'd never expected to see this in my life. Adelaide University has an anti-Israel tent occupation backed by Habiba Jagouri, the former editor of the Student Union newspaper there, who on October 7, the very day that Hamas terrorists slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, raped women, beheaded men, took hostages, even children, tweeted praise, she did, of the Hamas terrorists. She said, "It is beyond magnificent what we are watching. My entire heart is with them." October 7th, she said, was a new page in the history of Palestine. And she said, unconditional solidarity to the resistance. The final intifada has started. Now, police 5 weeks ago dropped charges against her of promoting terrorist material, and she celebrated by repeating total support of what she called the Palestine resistance and what you and I would probably call the Hamas terrorists. Support of whatever they did.
I stand with Palestinian resistance. I stand with, by any means necessary, to free Palestine.
Now, this extremist who has cheered on some of the most savage terrorism we have seen is now on the Adelaide University campus, organising more anti-Israel activity. And to that, the university says nothing. Second example, from Sydney University. Just 2 days after Hamas terrorists started this war with Israel by slaughtering and raping and beheading and torturing and kidnapping Jews, most of them civilians, Sydney University senior lecturer Rima marched to disrupt the commemoration of the victims at the Sydney Opera House. And he claimed what Hamas had done was justified.
So we're staff from Sydney University, and we're from the group of Sydney Uni staff that support boycott, divestment and sanctions. And we're here out in support of justice for Palestine and freedom for Palestinians. And we're saying that resistance is justified.
Now, I can't think of any circumstances where the rape and mutilation of women can be justified or defended. Yet Nick Rima also tweeted no progressive should feel the need to publicly condemn any choices by the Palestinian resistance, because doing so just adds to the perception that their cause is unjust. You might think you might not like a rapist's cause. Well, how about that? Yes, Sydney University does employ an academic who refuses to condemn even the rape and mutilation and murder of Jewish women. It has said nothing publicly about disciplining him. Third example, same university actually, Sydney University. Fahad Ali, a sessional academic there, at that same rally just 2 days after the mass slaughter of the Jews, told the mob he wasn't crying for the victims.
I'm not going to stand before you and shed tears over the settlers, the terrified settlers who have sat in your car and cheered on as bombs were dropping on Gaza. They would set up chairs and picnics on the hills to watch the bombs dropping down.
Again, Sydney University employs an academic who has no pity even for children, Jewish children, massacred by terrorists. It has said nothing about disciplining him. How about the sack? Fourth example, and I'm pretty sure you're now getting this picture of horrific inaction in the face of utter campus barbarity. Randa Abdel Fattah is a Macquarie University academic who's encouraged young children, primary school age, at an anti-Israel protest at Sydney University to chant for intifada and the destruction of Israel from the river to the sea.
Intifada! 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 From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
5, 6, 7, 8, Israel is a terrorist
Abdel Fattah has also in the past refused to condemn the murder of a Melbourne restaurateur by a Muslim extremist. She shared a poster of a Palestinian terrorist who she said inspired her, Dalal Mughrabi, who joined a terrorist raid on Israel, which slaughtered 38 civilians, including 13 children. So, absolutely true. Macquarie University employs an academic who has posted that she's inspired by a child-murdering Islamic terrorist and who now encourages primary school children to chant for attacks on Israel. It's investigating only her interaction with the children, not the rest. Sydney University has meanwhile said that those calls you just heard for intifada, a name given to two great waves of terrorist attacks on Israel, do not necessarily constitute breaches of its university's code of conduct. Can you believe the weakness there? Now, last week, yet another example. Two student leaders behind the anti-Israel protests at the Australian National University told ABC Radio they supported Hamas. They would not condemn its murders and its rapes and its kidnappings of Jews on October 7.
That you've also got to send a message to Hamas to release the hostages, don't you?
Well, I actually say that Hamas deserve our unconditional support, not because I agree with their strategy. Absolutely. Not because I agree with their strategy. Complete disagreements with that.
But you can't condemn what Hamas did in October last year?
I will not condemn what Hamas did. We must be unconditional, but we must be critical also,
Luke?
right?
No, I did not condemn.
So, students behind a campus protest unconditionally support a banned terrorist group and whatever they did to the Jews. Whatever. Unconditional support. Now, in this case, the university did eventually claim it had disciplined the students, but refused to say how, which means, well, I mean, what was it? Just naughty? Was it something more serious? Honestly, that kind of stuff, when we don't even know that means there's almost no deterrence to other students. That's weak. And on it goes. At Melbourne University, anti-Israel extremists, many masked, of course, the cowards, or what is that, cosplaying at being Palestinian terrorists, all the mask, liberated by being anonymous, can do any old thing behind a mask. Well, they set up an unlawful tent protest on campus. They actually harassed the university's vice-chancellor as he walked to work. They set off fire alarms and amplified chants of abuse outside his office.
Up with liberation! Up with liberation! Down, down with occupation! Down, down with occupation! Up with liberation! Up with liberation!
Annoying, that sound, isn't it? Can you imagine having that fire alarm set off right outside your office day in, day out? So here's Melbourne University tolerating that kind of harassment of senior staff, as well as, really, no wonder Jewish students especially say it's intimidating. Melbourne University, what does it do? Well, actually nothing. In fact, the Vice-Chancellor has now announced his early resignation for reasons he's not really going into. But I think you join the dots. Now, this intimidation is now that blatant. In fact, last week, a gang of up to 100 men, many bearded or in Arab clothing, some masked, of course, as is the way now, marched through the campus of Sydney University, chanting and carrying Islamic and Palestinian flags.
لبيك لبيك يا أنصار لبيك 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 يا أنصار.
That white flag was a Shahada flag with a Quranic inscription on there, no God but Allah. So Sydney University is now being treated by intruders, it looked like to me, I mean they didn't look like students, as a contested space for an aggressive religion, and yet the university said only, this is clearly intimidatory, as you can actually see. But they said, no, this is part of a peaceful procession. Peaceful procession. Honestly, the trend is so frighteningly clear. Universities are allowing radical staff, radical students radical campus invaders, endorsing even mass murder and rape, some of them, or chanting genocidal war cries, or carrying battle flags of their faith, intimidating Jewish students. And what do the chances of our top 8 universities do? Now, one of them is actually a former Liberal foreign minister, can you believe? What does she do except her hair? About the radicals chanting support for Israel to be destroyed, they have belatedly said only this. The group of 8, the top 8 universities, completely understand these phrases are deeply offensive, hurtful and distressing. Hey, they got that message after a few months of that. 6 months of it. We completely understand they're offensive, hurtful and distressing. And we would prefer that they were not used, but the fact remains they are not unlawful. Hand wash, hand wash, hand wash, not our problem. But since when do universities act only on opinions that were not unlawful? I mean, these hypocrites. These universities now have codes of conduct that are often laughably punitive in woke causes, including inclusive language guides that insist that people use correct pronouns on campus, like, a he for a she if that person decides to switch gender overnight. Oh, you can't do that. Discipline if you say a he to a she or a she to a he or whatever. But calling for the destruction of Israel, defending or even celebrating the slaughter of 1,200 Jews, rapes, doesn't seem to offend any university code. Isn't that incredible to you? I mean, is it me that's gone mad, or the university that have come under the spell of extremists on the one hand and cowards above them? Cowards. These chancellors, these vice-chancellors, hiding from this battle for our civilization.